Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something pretty wild. We are going to trace an unbroken 20,000-year thread of human interaction with meteorites. We usually look at these space rocks purely through the lens of modern science, right? Measuring chemical compositions, plotting out orbits, studying impact craters, the whole shebang. But today, we're actually shifting our perspective entirely. We're looking at this as a shared ancient human experience. How did our absolute earliest ancestors make sense of the sky suddenly falling? Well, let's find out.
So let's just jump right in and put ourselves in the shoes of a prehistoric human for a second. Ask yourself, have you ever been legitimately terrified by a shooting star? Probably not, right? Today, we feel awe. We make a wish. But imagine standing in the primal dark with absolute zero understanding of astronomy and suddenly seeing a roaring, fiery rock plummeting towards Earth with a blinding flash and deafening sound. It's a remarkably stark contrast to the comfortable wonder we feel when we look up today.
The 19th century poet John Boyle O'Reilly actually captured this fiery descent perfectly. He described that brilliant flash as the stone catches fire from the friction of the atmosphere. And that exact sight has universally captivated and, let's be honest, sometimes absolutely terrified human imagination across millennia. It's this incredible natural phenomenon that cuts across literally every single era of human history, leaving a trail of pure wonder right behind it.
Section 1. The Dawn of Encounters.
Long before anyone had invented written language, these celestial objects were viewed purely as terrifying, inexplicable forces, and they left an indelible mark on early humans. Take prehistoric cave art from Mount Awanet in Egypt, dating back roughly 20,000 years. There are these thick, dark lines descending rapidly from the sky, and right beside them, a human is depicted literally running for their life. Researchers actually believe this is one of the earliest recorded observations of a meteorite strike. It's a completely visceral, immediate reaction to the sky coming down.
Section 2. Iron from the Sky. But things change. As humanity entered the Bronze and Iron Ages, meteorites completely transformed from terrifying omens into invaluable gifts. Because before we could smell Earth's ores, meteorites were our very first source of iron. And you've got to check out the linguistic footprint this left behind across completely disconnected ancient cultures. They all independently named the earliest sources of iron after the sky and stars. The ancient Egyptians called it Ba and Pet, which literally means metal from the sky. The Hittites and Sumerians used words meaning fire from the sky. Even the Latin word sidereus is directly derived from their word for star. It's just an incredible global consensus born purely from observation.
And this linguistic breakthrough perfectly explains ancient Egyptian cosmology. They genuinely visualized the universe as a vast rectangle with a flat roof made entirely of iron. In their minds, since the only iron they ever found literally fell out of the clouds, meteorites were simply falling pieces of the ceiling that broke off and tumbled down to Earth. When you think about it, it's a beautifully logical conclusion based entirely on the physical evidence they had at the time.
Section 3. Sacred Stones and Gods.
Now, as civilizations expanded into massive empires, practical utility evolved into something much deeper, profound religious reverence. People began the literal worship of the stones themselves. Just look at how politically and spiritually significant these objects became to the mighty Roman Empire. Around 204 BC, the empire was so obsessed with securing its long-term prosperity that King Attalus transported a sacred, conical black meteorite all the way from Phrygia in Anatolia. This wasn't just a shiny rock to them. It was literally worshipped as the mother goddess Cybele. They built a temple for it in Rome and honored it for half a millennium.
And this wasn't just an isolated incident. This deep institutional reverence echoed even earlier in history. The Roman historian Titus Livius documented a massive meteorite shower on Mount Alban around 652 BC. This event was considered so extraordinarily significant that the Roman Senate didn't just casually take notes. They triggered a mandatory 9-day public festival in Rome. Seriously? Imagine a celestial event today completely halting a modern government for over a week.
Section 4. Records and Early Science.
Eventually, we reach the era where pure mythological worship gradually gives way to empirical observation. We can trace this global acceleration of human documentation on a timeline, starting around 645 BC, where Chinese records by Confucius documented exactly 5 stones falling in the Song region. Then by 467 BC, the Greeks were literally carving records of a meteorite strike directly into Parian marble. This represents a unified, global effort to track the heavens, laying the absolute groundwork for modern astronomy.
Fast forward a bit to the Islamic Golden Age in 1005 AD, and we see early science brilliantly in action. A massive 260-kilogram meteorite falls with a blinding light in modern-day Afghanistan. Now, two very different things happen here. First, the legendary scientist Ibn Sina accurately documents its exact physical nature in his famous encyclopedia. But simultaneously, Sultan Mahmud demands a legendary sword be forged from this star metal, and he hilariously fails. Why? Because Ibn Sina's scientific analysis was absolutely right. It was an unworkable pellicite, which is a brittle, stony iron mix that simply shatters into pieces when struck. It's this perfect, hilarious collision of scientific observation and human ambition.
Yet progress isn't always a straight line, right? Ironically, despite thousands of years of these meticulous human records across countless cultures, early modern scientists threw a massive wrench in the works. In the late 18th century, prominent scientists like Andreas Severius Stutz vehemently denied that stones could actually fall from the sky. They viewed all these stories of meteorites as mere peasant folklore that, quote, must not be forgiven, completely rejecting the physical reality so carefully documented by their ancestors.
It actually took until the 19th century for modern science to finally accept what prehistoric cave painters and ancient scribes already knew for a fact. So, the crucial point to take away from this explainer is that our wonder at the cosmos is an unbroken, deeply shared human experience. From terrified humans running from streaks of light, to vast empires worshipping space rocks, to scientists carefully cataloging their origins. Which leaves us to look up at the stars tonight and wonder, considering we've been tracking these stones for 20,000 years, how will humanity document them 20,000 years in the future? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating history with me.